Welcome in, everybody. It is Inside G2E, the Global Gaming Expo. Brady Cannon here with you for SportsGrid, and we are live on the Venetian Expo convention floor. Kind enough now to be joined by Mike Salvaris. He is the co-founder of Pro League Network. And Mike, welcome to the program. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm
Thanks
just briefly
me,
reading about what you do, and it's kind of fascinating. Pro League Network, as far as I understand, you're the one I imagine is the expert that can explain this better than I. But it sounds like you are dealing with some emerging, growing sports and providing odds and gambling opportunities on some of these sports that are not quite, top of the market like baseball, football.
Yeah, it's more than that. What we are is we're a sports media company that own and operate a variety of different emerging sports brands. We have a category of combat sports, portfolio of combat sports, everything from Jiu-Jitsu Championship, my t-shirt here, to Slap Fight Championship, that we own the IP, we operate the league, and then we distribute the content.
Okay.
And distribution happens on social media, it happens on connected TV,
right,
and then it happens on broadcast as well. Our portfolios includes combat sports, golf with our putting brand called the Putt Tour, and then basketball with our 3-on-3 basketball brand called Street.
And so you disseminate the broadcast,
We do the whole thing. So we employ the athletes, like we run the competition.
Oh, wow.
We do the whole thing. So we have a studio in Branson, Missouri, for example, for our combat sports, where on Friday night we'll host a slap fight one night, where we have our athletes come in and compete, and we broadcast that. And then the next week we'll have Jiu-Jitsu. The week after that we'll have Coffin Wars, or the week after that we'll have Ultimate Tire Wrestling. All these are sports and brands that we own, and they're in our portfolio.
Now, how do we tie into the sports betting on these events as well? Because you're involved in that too, right?
Yes. So the brands are certain number of our sports are approved for wagering. So we have about 35 state approvals in the US for wagering on our sports. If you want to wager on Jiu-Jitsu, if you want to wager on slap fighting, Putt Tour, if you want to wager on Street, you can do that through our various sportsbook partners.
Is this all based in the US? I know you're from Australia. Do you do stuff over there too?
No. We're 100% based in the US.
Okay.
I live in New York. Our team is split between our headquarters in New York City, and then we have our studio in Branson, Missouri. So our studio, we have all our production talent, and our creative director lives there. On the New York side, we have our sales and our media operations and social media. Okay,
so you're talking about some of these sports, the combat sports, the slap sports, stuff like that, the Putt Tour, that's great. I'm a big golfer. Pickleball. That's the hottest thing going, right? Is that going to be under your umbrella one of these days?
No, we're out on pickleball. We're out on padel. Pickleball in particular, I don't want to speak badly about anyone who's into pickleball. I think it's a great sport to play.
Right.
As a watching experience, it's not something that we feel like fits our brand. When we're looking at what is a good fit for Pro League Network, it's really something that we feel like we can produce with a fun and irreverent style. Like, it's got to be humorous and entertaining to watch, and it's got to be about the entertainment as much as it is about the sports.
Right. Well, I imagine a few pickleball matches would be pretty humorous if you saw me play.
Maybe, I got to say, depends who's against him. But yeah, I think, it's, I think I kind of make it equivalent to squash, where a lot of people like to play squash. Squash viewership, again, not amazing as a watching product and as a betting product as well.
Talk to me about the slap fighting. I think that's been pretty fascinating. Sometimes it makes you cringe a little bit. It's like, whoa, gosh, it's hard to watch, but people tune in. People like to engage in that sport that is really, up and coming.
Yeah, so we own Slap Fight Championship, which is actually the first slap fight league in the US. It started in 2017. We acquired the brand about 3 or 4 years ago. I got to say, I have a lot of respect for the athletes that compete in that. The desire that they have to compete, a lot of them used to compete in other forms of combat sports and maybe aged out of that or can't compete at that level anymore in this, but still have that desire to compete so much that they want to compete in slap fighting. And it's not so much how hard you hit, but it's like how much you can take it. And there are some absolute warriors that we have at our Slap Fight Championship that you just have to be in awe of their ability to compete at that level.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's Mike Salvaris. He is the co-founder of Pro League Network, and I I want to know, beyond some of the sports that we've discussed, what's next on the horizon for you? Are you constantly kind of try to dive into new sports that you see as a good fit for your broadcast and the gaming?
So there's a couple of areas. So one is we're constantly iterating sports in our lab in Branson, in our studio. So we have about 30 or 40 athletes on scholarship to that studio where they train there, and we use them to test out some of our new sports. I'll give you an example: Coffin Wars, which is grappling inside a coffin. Like,
oh my gosh.
Yeah. Fighter A starts on the ground, Fighter B has a hand on top of him, and Fighter A has 3 minutes to escape the coffin. And then the next round they swap, and if they're tied, then they go to a third round. Sports like that, we developed over the past 12 months in our lab. We tested it, we refined it, we put something out, we tested it again, we refined it, and then we got it to a point where we were willing to commit to a production schedule of it and roll it out to the world. We've done, I think, 4 Coffin Wars events. Early in this summer, we had this thing called Friday Night Fights, where every Friday night we had a different combat sport, and that featured in that, and that will continue to feature in the Friday Night Fights extension, which we're going to launch in January.
Mike, I want to ask you, what are some of the really quirky wagers that you can make on some of these sports? Like, the Coffin Wars, who's going to win? Obviously, there's something simple like that, but is there something, deep down in the weeds that we're missing?
So it depends on the sport. So on Kajitsu, there's a seatbelt choke, yes or no. So you can submit by seatbelt choke, which is a very common way to end a bout. And so there are some athletes that are just very, very good at the jump. So to refresh it, for those that don't at Kajitsu, you start 2 competitors, one's in the driver's seat, one's in the passenger seat. They both start buckled. The referee yells Hajime, which means basically start.
Go.
And they unbuckle and engage. And so there are some athletes that are really, really good at unbuckling, reaching over, grabbing the seatbelt, and doing the choke straight off.
Wow.
And
the seatbelt choke.
Yeah,
I love it.
Yeah, there's one guy we have, he's called Leroy Davis, shout out Leroy, who calls himself the seatbelt assassin. and he is. A lot of his fights end because he's just very crafty at using that seatbelt. And so that's an interesting and fun bet.
Oh, yeah. Interesting sport.
Yeah, it's a great sport. And then if you look at more, I guess, conventional sports like mini golf, the most popular bets there are really around over-under number of holes in one. So we have that.
Oh, yeah.
So you have that for particular athletes. So how many holes in one will they get in a particular round, which is popular. And then also thinking about holes in one for specific holes, because on the courses that we play, there are some that are gimmies, and then there are some that are just like, I don't know if it's going to happen.
Are there odds associated with, like, let's say this hole is really tough to get a hole in one, and it's 8-1 if you make one?
It's a plus. I think we've done plus 300 or plus 400 or something like that on a certain hole, and others where it's like it's a minus 150 or minus 200, because it's more of a gimme situation.
Now, how do you bet on that? Am I on an app and I'm gonna go to the Kajitsu and
so we distribute through main large scale sportsbook operators. So like DraftKings, for example, has taken out our odds. Bet365 has done live trading on our putting property before.
Really?
Yeah. So there's stuff like that, as well as other sweeps and fantasy providers. But we've spent the time. We started this company about 3 years ago, and myself and Bill Yukotonis, my co-founder, we spent a lot of time earlier on going to different state commissions to get this stuff approved for wagering. Obviously, some people thought these guys are crazy. What I mean? Like, what do you mean you got to get wagering approved? But we really spent the time to talk about the integrity that we infuse into these sports. There's real thought into the rule structure. There's governing bodies. There's integrity monitoring. There's a lot of stuff. We call it like the business behind the party, as it were, that goes into sports like this to make them wagerable properties, and we take that very, very seriously.
So where do people find you? Our audience that is watching here today, the Pro League Network. How do they get involved?
Yeah, so if you go follow our socials, Pro League Network on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube, and as well as our sports. So Slap Fight Championship, Kajitsu Championship, the Putt Tour. They all have separate social handles that you can find us there and stay up to date for a lot of the stuff that's happening in 26. Including an extension of Friday Night Fights, the rollout of our next series of Putt Tour, and then our next series of Street Basketball.
Pro League Network. Go check it out, people. We'll be back with more in just a moment.